Welcome to the World Marketing Summit. This is the first one done digitally, and we have 60 marvelous top marketers gathered to speak and to you and to share their findings and their ideas about how to improve your marketing and business impact. I myself will turn to the problem of COVID and how COVID and the pandemic is affecting our customers and our lives. And I will hopefully show some strategies and tools that are used in making your business success greater. So we'll now turn to my ideas for you. I wanted to start with a little bit about my recent work, in case you're not aware of it. And Marketing 4.0 pretty much summarizes my thinking about marketing as of 1 or 2 years ago. We are going to be publishing Marketing 5.0, and I'll make some comments about that shortly. The other work I've done in marketing is what I call brand activism. I think our brands need to be stronger, have more purposeful, and carry even social messages as well as just selling messages to our audience. But let me move on, because I'm going to want to discuss 3 specific ideas. The questions are, first, how are consumers and companies responding to the new conditions and regulations that are coming out of COVID? Things like wear masks and lockdowns and so on. 2, how fast will your nation, and we're talking to some hundreds of nations, how fast will your nation work toward full economic recovery? When will you reach full economic recovery? And 3, how will capitalism as a system and marketing as a discipline be affected by this pandemic? Some of the bad news. This pandemic has been so costly to so many people. Just the numbers themselves: 760 million COVID-19 infections and 1 million deaths worldwide. 1 million deaths. And the US accounts for 20% of the world's deaths. So my nation has done a terrible job in handling this epidemic. Many more people died aside from the COVID because they've had increased hunger, inability to get normal medical services and get vaccinations for malaria or AIDS or measles. So more deaths have occurred. And poverty has shot up to COVID, up to the year 2019. Poverty was decreasing around the world, particularly in China and in some Asian communities. And now poverty has shot up again. And many persons' education and career has been damaged deeply by all these changes. And the social costs of loneliness and sorrow cannot be calculated. So the cost has been immense. And what has business done about it? Business, of course, did the normal response. Business firms reduced their staff. Some kept their staff but put them on furloughs, and some actually laid off people and fired them. They lowered their prices, and the question is, should they have lowered their prices or just add discounts and promotions to move their product sales? Some companies did what they normally do during a recession. They reduced their ads and they reduced their marketing, and I would take exception to doing that. I would just change my message, but I would not reduce my marketing. Many companies canceled outstanding orders because they didn't want to be stuck with goods that people were not able to buy from them. And they even delayed their payments to banks and utilities and suppliers to keep more cash on hand. The reason for the illustration of the book on the right is it is a book that John Castiglione and I wrote when in 2010, when the Great Recession took place. You remember when people lost their homes, they couldn't pay for their mortgages. And in that book, we detailed all the strategies that make sense for a business to apply during a recession. And I think it's a classic. And so any of you who want to see a whole discussion, a deep discussion of different things you can do with your marketing and your business strategies, Chaotix offers you that chance. Now, the consumers also responded. Not only did the businesses panic, the consumers changed a lot. They initially hoarded because they needed food and other medical things so that they climbed up on that ladder. And then they stopped buying a lot of things because some companies were closing down and they wanted to save their money. And what boomed actually was online purchasing. What declined was in-store purchasing. In fact, one message is that the impact of COVID has been to accelerate the rate at which we have moved into the digital age. That's a nice thing normally, but it came with so much pain, and we wish it came about in a different way. How did governments help the situation? Well, in three ways. They took different steps. Some governments, like China in particular, went for total lockdown because they favored saving lives over saving the economy. And they knew they will get back to the economy. Sweden was an exceptional case where they decided on no lockdown. They favored saving the economy. And the result was that Sweden lost more people than Denmark did or Norway, which had practiced lockdowns. So yes, Sweden's economy kept stronger, but they did lose more lives in doing that. Now, there is a middle way. Just tell people who are over 65 in poor health to stay home, wear a mask, keep social distance, wash their hands often, and so on. And don't let gatherings take place of more than 10 people. And even then, they should stay 6 feet apart and wear masks. And then make sure you keep the essential industries going. You need some workers, and make sure they're working their plant or their business with masks and cleaning of facilities and so on. And then the hospital should increase the number of beds available and the needed medical equipment for this kind of crisis, and have a sufficient number of doctors and nurses on staff. So those are, I'm in favor of the middle way, and that's what we find more companies and countries are doing. Let's look at just this graph because in the comparison between the United States and the European Union, you can see that many European countries did much better than we did. They peaked where we peaked, but we stayed at a very high level, and they brought it down because they did much more lockdown and much more testing and tracing of who was getting ill. Now, even in Europe, if we would distinguish just between two countries, Germany and England, Germany did so much better than England. Germany immediately went into testing, widespread testing and tracing of who are the super spreaders, whereas England, like the United States, didn't do much of that. And so there was a great difference in the number of infections and deaths. So the pandemic has exposed so many weaknesses in our economies. First of all, health systems are woefully inadequate to have enough beds and enough staff to meet, especially pandemics and so on. Then many companies now are part of global sourcing. They don't make the stuff they need. They get it at lower prices by buying these products from abroad. But now countries are realizing that some essential products have to be made at home, even at higher cost. Certainly, this is a finding in the United States that we have got to make our own medical supplies and certain other things, even if they're priced lower abroad. And what about the safety net in your country? Do you have social assistance, unemployment insurance? Do you have food banks, places people can go who are hungry to be getting some food? We need to develop better for the poor and for the working class, social safety nets when things like this happen. We have to look at the banking system and make sure that banks are reserving a high enough level of cash to be able to finance businesses that need help and need to borrow money. Banking systems are always subject to panic, and they have to show that they have reserves to meet cash needs. And then every country seems to need a better government, better leadership, better staffs, better technology, because the death rate and the infection rate was quite different in different countries, often because of the leader, the head of the government, making the right decisions as opposed to the wrong decisions. So let's look at what happened to consumer behavior and what happened to company behavior during this period. First, let's look at consumer behavior. Of course, we know that some companies had to close down temporarily or permanently. Some brands and stores have vanished. And many customers are shifting to lower cost brands. Now, you may say, well, that's where working class people and poor people buy their things. But do you know it's included the middle class? The middle class has been shrinking. The middle class, which is used to medium quality brands, not the highest and not the lowest, are abandoning the middle brands. So it almost implies that a company ought to either focus on making lower cost versions of and brands, or luxury goods. There's really not three, but two groups. Either you make something that is affordable, or you make a luxury version of it, but not a middle class version. We can debate that. Consumers are doing more online ordering than in-store shopping. And what does that mean? That many stores are half empty, if they're open at all. And you're paying, as a store, a lot of money for no customers or few customers. What's the future of in-store shopping when more and more people get used to getting any goods they want from a company like, say, Amazon, which sells you everything you could want except a car, basically? Why do in-store shopping? Well, in-store shopping will come back once we get the pill developed and people are safe and can shop in stores, but it won't be back to the level it was with full employment. Customers also have changed. They're much more sensitive to health and food issues and germ avoidance. And frankly, they are saving more money now. First of all, some people are working at home with the agreement of their company, and so they're eating at home. They're not traveling and spending money on buses or subways to get to and from work. So there may be more money saved. And of course, it makes sense to save money because you worry about another pandemic. And actually, the fact that they say there's more saving means there's less spending than would potentially take place. And that's good and not good. Consumers are learning something new, that their home is the center of their lives for not only food, but for entertainment, and even because they're working for a company, but at home. So homes are going to get more important, and more will be spent on improving the home life and for families. Consumers are doing more work and sociability using Zoom and FaceTime, and that makes a lot of sense. Thank God for those, because even though we are avoiding in-person meetings, we can still see our friends and our co-workers on Zoom and FaceTime and so on. And finally, consumers are paying more attention to not only the COVID, daily reports about that, but the next big epidemic will be, whatever you want to call it, it's climate change. That's a big, big problem that's just next to us. COVID and climate change. And of course, racism has become a very big issue and should be faced. And then the elections, which are taking place in different countries, get a lot of attention. Now let's see what some consumers have done about the new life in the economy. I have separately shown 5 different groups that have responded. I haven't any data on how big the groups are. They may be small now and be getting bigger later, but the first group is life simplifiers. And these are persons who say, I've been eating too much, I've been buying too much. The result is a lot of clutter in my home. I don't really need to own a car. I can always use one of the car services. And so I want to simplify my life. So we see that going on. Then we have other people who are sort of big picture people, and they worry about the future of life and the planet. They wonder if consumption is growing too large and outpacing the carrying capacity of the earth. I mean, after all, our population in the world has grown very rapidly from 7.7 billion to 9.8 billion in recent years, and it's a very big carrying load. That means we may be running out of arable land. Our oceans are getting deteriorated, and they're deteriorating because of plastic and other awful things happening in our oceans. And what does that mean for the fish stock? And then there's a problem of we need more conservation. And so maybe marketing is going to be blamed for the discipline that is dedicated to growing demand and consumption. And if we, as marketers, are told, stop growing so much consumption, what are we all about as marketers? Now, climate activists are those who worry about carbon footprints and pollution. They want good air and good water, and they think the planet is endangered, seriously going to end if we do not control the amount of carbon footprints. We've got to get rid of cars that are fuel dependent on the old fuels as opposed to electric cars. We have to have companies doing more with new energy systems and so on. There's a fourth group of people who are actually changing what they eat. They think that killing animals is not good for the animals. It's not right, but also it's not good for their own health. Too much meat. So they're moving toward plants and vegetables and fruit, vegetarians, vegans, people like that. And then there's finally a lot of people who are just conservation activists, and they say as a mantra, uh, let's do what we can to reduce how much clothing we buy, or at least don't give up the clothing, reuse it, repair it if it's frayed a little bit, or give it to needy persons. But we don't have to fill our closets with all kinds of clothes we will never wear or infrequently wear. And this group is very much against planned obsolescence, which is part of our system. You know, you buy a car today, and 2 years later, they will tempt you to buy the newer car because it has a few newer features. And there's even a company in Spain, I think it's Zara, that they issue new clothing every 2 months. And they tell the young people, come into the store, see what you like, and buy it now, because 2 months later, and maybe it's not 2 months, maybe 2 weeks later, I think it's 2 weeks, this is our new clothing line for this 2 week period. And if you like something, it's not going to be around after 2 weeks. So the conservationists want less of that to be taking place. Okay. Now, the big thing we're noticing is that all these industries have been affected, but differently. The ones that are essential industries are having fast recovery. I mean, our hospitals have to work for us. Our food industry, the groceries, the wholesalers, the manufacturers of food, we need that working, and we need people who will wear masks and be careful and work in those companies. And the banks have to work for us because we need cash. The utilities, we need energy. Construction goes on, manufacturing. And then certain large companies, we have two attitudes toward Amazon, Walmart, Costco, and other big ones. We like them. We really would not want to see them disappear, but you know, all of those have killed small business. I mean, Amazon moves in and carries a certain product that kills the small businesses that carry that product. Walmart opens up in a city, and so many small businesses die. So we have kind of a divided feeling about these big companies, but we're happy to see them open during this period. But there's other industries that we have to be sad about. Restaurants and bars have really closed in many cases, and they're slowly reopening. They try to reopen with measures that are sanitary, where people are not at every table, but every fourth table, where their workers are wearing masks, and so on. Some companies do an extraordinary job of giving us confidence in going to that restaurant. There's one I know in Sarasota, Florida, where I live, and it has done a superior job of making us feel comfortable if we want to eat, at least outside of the restaurant. But other non-essential industries, now hotels want to stay open, but they're only getting it about 20% filled by staying open. So they're in a desperate situation. Airlines too, because travel has gone way down. And we have these big businesses, hotels and airlines, asking for federal help. I mean, handouts to save them. And the schools and colleges were not sure what to do. Some opened, some went only online. And it's pretty hard with public schools too, for decisions to be made whether little kids should be learning at home. And the question is, do they even have computers at home? In some countries, many countries, there's a poorer class of people who have no access to computers. Museums have to decide whether to stay closed or open. Even churches are suffering, religious places, because people really shouldn't go in crowd on Sundays in big crowds back to the church. And many churches are not knowing what to do with their empty space. And certainly performance industries, operas, ballet singers, they're not going to recover for a long time. So the picture is different depending on the industry. Now, in planning to open up again, a company needs to prepare a reopening strategy and announcements. They have to really know what to say and what people will get out of coming back and trying to buy from their business. And there's going to be these very companies in the near term know they have to put more money into improving their digital systems and investment, and to increase customer service, because companies will be remembered by their customers as to whether the companies help the customers in their plight or did not. And it's not only about just the product that the company makes, but the companies that are able to show more caring are going to do much better after COVID is conquered. But the big question is, what's the long-term recovery strategy? If you're a company, what do you think the future level of demand and cost will be in your market? And then you got to decide whether you want to grow that market that you're in or that product that you make, or stay the same, be careful, or get smaller because demand won't be that high. Actually, to sell your business, perhaps, maybe it's a wise thing to sell it if there's some buyer around, or just close down and walk away. So those are recovery issues. Now, the decisions you're going to make as marketers, the first and biggest one is, what is your assumption about the length of the COVID period? How long will it be a major curse on all of us? And when will the solution, the pill, arrive? And how fast will it be distributed to the whole population? So those are, because if you are pessimistic about and you feel the virus will be around for a long time and the pill won't arrive for a long time, it will make a difference in your decisions on what markets to stay in, what products to keep and expand, what your value proposition should be to attract customers to your business. The market reopening message and features will depend on what you think of the future of the COVID-19. And so about what do you want to do with your price and your promotions and customer guarantees, and what risks are you taking for whatever plan you develop? It's based on your assumption about virus length and pill arrival time. And you hope that these other decisions are low risk if you were wrong about the arrival time of the ending of the virus and the arrival of the pill. In other words, you want to make a plan which is not a disaster if you made the wrong assumption about virus length and pill arrival time. Now, as far as marketing tools and so on, I'll be brief. Here are the ones to notice: that you're going to need to make more use of AI, artificial intelligence, more use of social and digital media, more use of algorithms that will make decisions that you would have made, but they work to save you time because they're smart enough to, looking at the conditions, make the right decision even in your absence. And then you're going to have to really look at the possibilities of improving your business success with sensors. Sensors, nowadays people can walk toward their home and the door will open, or their car will open, or temperatures will be changed by sensors. So we're going to have this whole new world of sensors. Artificial AR and VR, virtual reality and augmented reality. You know, those glasses you put over your eyes and you get a dramatic learning situation about a new product that people want to know more about. You could see it demonstrated with these glasses, and we call that, virtual reality. Robotics are going to be bigger. In Japan, they make a business out of robotic pets, so older people can be sitting down with a cat and feel it's almost a real cat as company. NLP is natural language work. You know how we call Siri on our phone or Alexa. These are conversations. We ask Siri to find out what the weather is. That's natural language work, and that's going to progress. And then chatbots. You may put a question to actually not a person, but to a machine, and it will answer you intelligently. We actually think that future psychiatry might be, you will be talking to a chatbot with your problems, and it will answer and make suggestions to you. Marketing automation, more things will be done with all of these other tools, algorithms, and so on, to reduce the normal kinds of decisions that you have to make. We have to always study how customers journey to us and to map those journeys. And those journeys consist of stops at different touch points on the way to purchase. I mean, anyone buying a car, you wonder, how did that person decide to come to our Honda dealership? What were the steps that person took? Were we successful with each touch point on the way to finally deciding to visit our dealership? Because we have to be perfect. For example, if the person came all the way to our dealership because he has an interest in a Honda, and our salesperson who we chose to talk to was a bad salesperson, then that touch point kills the sale. Every touch point has to be well managed, and we have to know what they are. There's a lot of work in personas to help us really get a feeling for Mrs. Consumer or Miss Consumer. A persona might be built around a woman who's 35 to 45 years old, who's middle class and married and has 2 children. And we want to know how to address such a person. So we build a persona. And then there's content management. We're always sending not only sales messages to our customers, but things that might interest them to make their lives better. We're working on that. That's really a newer feature of marketing. We're also noticing that some people on social media have a lot of influence on other people. You take some famous singers and so on, they have such huge followings. And if you learn that Lady Gaga uses a certain perfume, you're going to adopt that perfume possibly as a woman. But the thing is, that has turned into a commercial thing where big influencers are working with companies to be paid for using certain products. Is this legitimate? We have to question that. But now there are more people trying to build up very big followings, big networks, so they can maybe go to a particular company and say, I'm influencing a lot of people to use your product. Watch for neuromarketing. We have at my university, Northwestern University, a wonderful faculty member who knows so much about how the brain works, the human brain, and how to know what impact anything we might use or say will have on that person. how a particular ad versus another ad affects the person's interest and attention and possibly buying the product. One other thing, lean marketing, very good idea. Don't spend great amounts of time to make a perfect product to introduce to the market. Learn by doing. Make a simple version. Put it out to a few people. See their response. You'll learn that it could be made better. Now make it better, but put it out again. See if the response is better or you got new ideas. So lean marketing is a iterative process of not tying everything up with one major perfect product that takes you 3 years to prepare. No, do lean marketing. Now let's move on. What shape will your recovery take? The best shape it could take is a V shape. What does that mean? Well, there was a sudden collapse of sales, and we did the right things, and now we're back to full employment. There will be certain cities that either were not touched by COVID or were touched so badly by COVID that many people already got it, and they're ready to start up. Let's call them ready cities and ready states. They're not hot. They're ready. Many consumers will, of course, still be careful, even if the city has good statistics about the way it controlled COVID. And there's going to be a lot of people, especially older people, will be very careful about buying from you. And then many normal businesses that are not essential will remain closed. And I think we could work out answers for hotels and airplanes and cruises and what they might do, but this is too short a talk to take each one and show that there are some meaningful steps they can take. Now, U-shape is going to be the real return length. It's going to mean that things fell very fast, and now the recovery is very slow. It's my feeling that we are going to face 2 to 4 years before we get to full employment and 2% annual economic growth, which we used to have before COVID struck. Let's go for 2 years, but what does that mean? 2 years if the nation develops an early and easily implemented antibody test and tracing system, and that the nation develops a reliable, safe vaccine within the next year, and the nation continues to send checks to citizens and businesses who've been terribly hurt by this development, so that they can keep alive and spending money too for their necessities, and that the nation starts within 2 years a major infrastructure rebuilding program to create jobs. This is not done like you build pyramids. Many nations have very deteriorating infrastructures of roads and bridges and ports, and they need to do this. And yet some countries have not started to do it, but it's there to be done. And if that doesn't happen, it will take us 4 years to get back to where we were at earlier. More countries will begin to, I hope, to measure not only the GDP, the gross domestic product. Most countries only use that to measure their performance, but we want one more measure, a measure of what happened that year to the level of people's well-being or happiness. Because we can imagine that GDP goes up, but happiness goes down. This would happen, for example, if everyone is working harder and harder and losing their health, but basically they made more product. So we want another measure. And I think more Americans will learn that some countries tend to enjoy a higher level of happiness and well-being And they also are capitalistic countries running successful businesses. And how do they do it? These are the Nordic countries. They're particularly Sweden and Norway, Denmark, and if you add Finland and Iceland and so on, they have what is called welfare capitalism. That is to say, it's easy to start a business and to operate it, but also they make sure that people can go to college and the cost will be low, and that health care is available to everyone at an affordable cost, and that's Nordic. I think more Americans will recognize that productivity gains have not been shared equitably, and this is true of many, many countries. You know this, like in Brazil and other places, too many billionaires have popped up, and more people are getting poor. You see it in the overpayment of CEOs who used to make 20 to 50 times as much as the average worker. Now they're getting 300 to 1,000 times what the average worker in their company is getting. And so it's leading to believing that we have a rigged economic system. We better get the trade unions back so they can complain and give the voice of the workers to strategy of the company. And it's time to pass higher taxes on the rich. That's what is keeping the economies from growing. So I have 4 conclusions. First, most industries will recover, but a few will lag and some will not even recover. Secondly, our recovery to full employment will take not tomorrow, but 2 to 4 years. Depending on doing the right things, it will be 2 years. 3, legislative priorities will move to finally fixing our health and our education systems and our systems for childcare and helping the elderly, designing better social assistance programs for those who are in need, and launching infrastructure programs to increase employment. And fourth, coronavirus will stimulate, of course, moving the economy from its traditional capitalism to more social and stakeholder capitalism. So I leave you with this thought that if you're going to be in the same business 5 years from now that you're in now, you're going to be out of business because things change. So be alert and so on. Thanks for listening to me. I look forward to hearing how your company has improved its business and marketing effectiveness, both during and after COVID-19. Thank you.